Hi friends, I'm Elise and today we are going to pick out my fall TBR. Like so many people, fall is my absolute favorite season, and I always really look forward to all of the spooky season reads that I'm gonna get to. So I already have 2 books picked out that I know for sure I want to read this season, but the rest are still on my shelves, so I will just pick them with you. Now, the first book on this TBR is a book I've had on my shelves for quite a while, and that is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Haro. And this, of course, as it says in the title, is a witchy read. And I love this cover. So this is the Illumicrate or Owlcrate edition. Illumicrate. So it's signed by the author. It's got sprayed red edges. It's gorgeous. I love this cover so much. In 1893, there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the wild, dark days before the burnings began, but now witching is nothing but tidy charms and nursery rhymes. If the modern woman wants any measure of power, she must find it at the ballot box. But when the Eastwood sisters, James Juniper, Agnes Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna, join the suffragists of New Salem, they begin to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Stalked by shadows and sickness, hunted by forces that will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not even to live, the sisters will need to delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them if they want to survive. There's no such thing as witches, but there will be. This sounds like the perfect witchy fantasy to read for the fall. Next is a newer book that I actually pre-ordered. I don't know why I pre-ordered it. I've never read anything by this author, but the synopsis sounded really good and I liked the cover. And that is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. In this story, the main character is a realtor, but she's also a vampire. And I think there's a house that she's trying to sell, but it's currently being haunted by the previous owner who was murdered there. I think she has to help the ghost figure out who murdered them before the ghost will like pass on, and then she can ethically sell the home to somebody else. I love the bones and the skeletons on the front, and this one has really cool end pages. So now I'm gonna look through my shelves and we'll see if I can find any books that I want to read. So I think if anything, I'm going to be picking books out of this top shelf. Jennifer McMahon, really all of these sound good. I know this one sounds really interesting. This one is about a married couple who build their dream house, but they do it with materials that they have found like around the property. And unfortunately, some of those items are cursed or haunted, and so they are unintentionally building a haunted house. And this one I don't know a whole lot about, but I have heard that it's either like a retelling or inspired by Frankenstein. Vita Nostra, this is like dark academia. Final Girl Support Group. If you've been around my channel, you know that I have a tumultuous relationship with Grady Hendrix. This is the absolute last chance that I'm giving him. If I'm gonna read this, spooky season is definitely the time to do so. Let's add that to the pile. I think this is more science fiction. This I got from the Aardvark Book Club. This is also science fiction. I really do want to read this, but I have heard that there are elements of The Minders by the same author and The Passengers. So I have heard that you should read this, The Minders and The Passengers, before reading The Marriage Act. These two I definitely want to read. Sign here. So I'll add that to the pile. And The Year of the Witching. Death of Jane Lawrence. That's another one that I keep meaning to read. This one I got from the Authentic Books box, so they had their little emblem stuck right there, a little nameplate signed by the author. This one did not have great reviews when it first came out, but I'm still really intrigued, and spooky season would be a good time to read it. Here's some more, kind of a mix of thriller, horror. Slowfoot by Brum. The X-Hex. That is one that I cannot believe I've not read yet, but definitely want to get to that. In case you don't know, this is another pen name for Rachel Hawkins. Rachel Hawkins is the name that she writes her thrillers under, and then Erin Sterling is for her romances. I think there's only 2 romances. I don't know if she has more. This one, I think the main character in this one is technically a vampire, but I don't think it's not like your typical vampire story, I don't think. So I might hold off on that one for now. Another Olivia Blake, but this is a love story, so I won't be reading that one this season. Oh, this sounds good. Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This, I think the little boy disappears for quite a while, and then when he comes back, he has to build like this treehouse or something, and if he doesn't, people are gonna get hurt. Might be a good time to read that. And basically all 3 of these. So the other, Alexis Henderson, House of Hunger, The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas, and Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. All right, down here, I will be reading this in October, but I'm not going to include it in my fall TBR. All right, down here is, I think, mostly science fiction. I mean, not this. I don't think that's House of Leaves. Actually, this would be a really good time to read that as well. But I don't know if I'm ready to take that on. Because this is the one that, yeah, see? Random pages of like hardly any text, and then some pages you have text that like reads sideways. It's crazy, and like I don't know if I'm ready to take this on. And none of these are really hitting me just because of the time of year. And oh, don't mind these. These don't actually go here. The Historian, that's somewhat of a Dracula story, so this might be, you know, I started this book in college, and I was really enjoying it, but I wasn't as hardcore of a reader as I am now, so I don't think I got very far before I like softy enough. I just kind of stopped reading it. So that might be a good one. And then over here I have a spiral. I have a spiral stack of my classics. They're like I can't remember if it's like Paper Mill or something. They're a special edition. Yeah, Paper Mill Press. But I have like Frankenstein, Dracula. Let's see. I'm not going to reread Dracula right now, but Frankenstein might be a good one to read. Okay, so I think I have a pretty decent stack now. Now keep in mind, these are not books that I am committing to reading. This is just a list of books that, because of the season, sound really good to me. So there's going to be books that I read that are not on this list. So the first one, this is a doozy, and this is very ambitious. House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This book I'm quite terrified to read. I don't even really know what it is, except that it's a house that like defies the laws of physics, I think. A young family that moves into a home on Ash Tree Lane where they discover something terribly wrong. Their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Of course, neither Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Will Davidson nor his companion Karen Green was prepared to face the consequences of that impossibility until the day their 2 little children wandered off and their voices eerily began to return. Another story of creature darkness, of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon enough would tear through their walls and consume all of their dreams. This book sounds like an absolute nightmare. Signed here by Claudia Lux. This one is about a man, he works in hell. An utterly gripping debut novel about a guy who works in hell, literally, and is on the cusp of a big promotion if only he can get one more member of the wealthy Harrison family to sell their soul. The Final Support Group by Grady Hendrix. This one, I don't have high hopes for this because for whatever reason, Grady Hendrix writing and I just do not mix. I'm only reading this because I already owned it. Every book that I've read by Grady Hendrix has just Anyways, in horror movies, the final girl is the one who's left standing when the credits roll, the one who fought back, defeated the killer, and avenged her friends, the one who emerges bloodied but victorious. But after the sirens fade and the audience moves on, what happens to her? Lynette Tarkington is a real-life final girl who survived a massacre 22 years ago, and it has defined every day of her life since. And she's not alone. For more than a decade, she's been meeting with 5 other actual final girls and their therapists in a support group for those who survived the unthinkable, putting their lives back together piece by piece. That is, until one of the women misses a meeting and Lynette's worst fears are realized. Someone knows about the group and is determined to take their lives apart again, piece by piece. But the thing about these final girls is that they have each other now, and no matter how bad the odds, how dark the night, how sharp the knife, they will never ever give up. We'll see how it goes. The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. I don't know much about this, except it is a witchy romance. Oh, yes, I think I remember now. So I think she accidentally hexed her ex-boyfriend. Okay, this, I have a pet peeve. When did this come out? 2021. So when this book came out, ACOTAR was already a thing. The guy's name in this book is Reese, like Reese-Ann. And I don't like when books do that. It's like, you know the following that name has. Like, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like it. And if I finish that and like it, which I'm assuming I will because I generally like Rachel Hawkins, which is her name in the thriller realm, that I do have The Kiss Curse that I could read as well. Slewfoot by Brom. I've had this one for a while and I keep meaning to read it, like most of the books on my shelves. So this takes place in Connecticut in 1666. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him Father, Slayer, Protector. The colonists call him Slewfoot, Demon, Devil. To Abatha, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he is the only one she can turn to for help. Together, they ignite a battle between pagan and Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in its wake. If it is a devil you seek, then it is a devil you shall have. The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. And Caitlin actually has another book coming out November, I want to say. And I actually have an e-arc of it from NetGalley. Something about a room. I think the main character goes into a room and she finds like a bunch of clones of herself. The Luminous Dead is by Caitlin Starling. I didn't know that. Alright, so Last to Leave the Room. Ooh, it comes out in October. Crap. So this one, I think a woman marries a man and he's like a doctor, but there's weird things going on. Practical, unassuming Jane Shoringfield has done the calculations and decided that the most secure path forward is this: a husband in a marriage of convenience who will allow her to remain independent and occupied with meaningful work. Her first choice, the dashing but reclusive Dr. Augustine Lawrence, agrees to her proposal with only one condition: that she must never visit Lindridge Hall, his crumbling family manor outside of town. Yet on their wedding night, an accident strands her at his door in a pitch-black rainstorm, and she finds him changed. Gone is the bold, courageous surgeon, and in his place is a terrified, paranoid man, one who cannot tell reality from nightmare and fears Jane is an apparition, come to haunt him. By morning, Augustine is himself again, but Jane knows something is deeply wrong at Lindridge Hall, and with the man she has so hastily bound her safety to. The Year of the Witching and House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. I've owned this one for a while. This is the author's newest one. This one, I believe, is... I'm just going to read you the synopsis because obviously I haven't read these books, so I don't know what they're about. In the lands of Bethel, where the prophet's word is law, Emmanuel Moore's very existence is blasphemy. So I'm assuming this is Emmanuel. Her mother's union with an outsider of a different race cast her once proud family into disgrace. So Emmanuel does her best to worship the Father, follow holy protocol, and lead a life of submission, devotion, and absolute conformity like all the other women in the settlement. But a mishap lures her into the forbidden dark woods surrounding Bethel, where the first prophet once chased and killed 4 powerful witches. Their spirits are still lurking there, and they bestow a gift on Emmanuel, the journal of her dead mother, who Emmanuel is shocked to learn once sought sanctuary in the wood. Fascinated by the secrets in the diary, Emmanuel finds herself struggling to understand how her mother could have consorted with the witches. But when she begins to learn the grim truths about the church and its history, she realizes the true threat to Bethel is its own darkness, and she starts to understand that if Bethel is to change, it must begin with her. And I think this was originally supposed to be part of a series, but I don't think that's the case now. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I've heard. And then House of Hunger. Marion Shaw has been raised in the slums where want and deprivation are all she knows. Despite longing to leave the city in its misery, she has no real hope of escape until the day she spots a peculiar listing in the newspaper seeking a blood maid. Though she knows little about the far north, where wealthy nobles live in luxury and drink the blood of those in their service, Marion applies to the position. In a matter of days, she finds herself the newest blood maid at the notorious House of Hunger. And at the center of it all is Countess Lisbeth. The Countess, who presides over this hedonistic court, is loved and feared in equal measure. She takes a special interest in Marion. Lisbeth is magnetic, and Marion is eager to please her new mistress. But when she discovers that the ancient walls of the House of Hunger hide even older secret, Marion is thrust into a vicious game of cat and mouse. She'll need to learn the rules of her new home, and fast, or its halls will soon become her grave. The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. So as I said, this one I started reading in college and I just eventually stopped reading it. But what I did read, I remember, was really good. And it's so floppy. Breathtakingly suspenseful and beautifully written, The Historian is the story of a young woman plunged into a labyrinth where the secrets of her family's past connect to an inconceivable evil, the dark 15th century reign of Vlad the Impaler, or Dracula, and a time-defying pact that may have kept his awful work alive through the ages. The search for the truth becomes an adventure of monumental proportions, taking us from monasteries and dusty libraries to the capitals of Eastern Europe, in a feat of storytelling so rich, so hypnotic, so exciting, that it has enthralled readers around the world. Imaginary Friend by Stephen Chbosky. This is a horror compared to Stephen King, I believe. Single mother Kate Reese is on the run, determined to improve her life for herself and her son Christopher. She flees an abusive relationship in the middle of the night with her child. Together, they find themselves drawn to the tight-knit community of Mill Grove, Pennsylvania. It's as far off the beaten track as they can get, just one highway in, one highway out. At first, it seems like the perfect place to finally settle down. Then Christopher vanishes for 6 days. Could you imagine your child vanishing for 6 days? No one can find him until Christopher emerges from the woods at the edge of town, unharmed but not unchanged. He returns with a voice in his head only he can hear, with a mission only he can complete. Build a tree house in the woods by Christmas, or his mother and everyone in the town will never be the same again. That sounds really good. I'm saying that about all these books. Obviously they sound good because I purchased them. And the last two, The Hacienda and Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. The Hacienda is kind of compared to Mexican Gothic, and I have heard from people who have read this that they did like this better than Mexican Gothic. The spookiness factor that they wanted to get out of Mexican Gothic, they got out of this. During the overthrow of the Mexican government, Beatrice's father was executed and her home destroyed. When handsome Don Rodolfo Solorzano proposes, Beatrice ignores the rumors surrounding his first wife's sudden demise, choosing instead to seize the security that his estate in the countryside provides. She will have her own home again, no matter the cost. But Hacienda San Isidro is not the sanctuary she imagined. When Rodolfo returns to work in the capital, visions and voices invade Beatrice's sleep. The weight of invisible eyes follows her every move. Rodolfo's sister Juana scoffs at Beatrice's fears, but why does she refuse to enter the house at night? Why does the cook burn copal incense at the edge of the kitchen and mark the doorway with strange symbols? What really happened to the first Doña Solorzano? Beatrice only knows two things for certain. Something is wrong with the hacienda, and no one there will save her. Desperate for help, she clings to the young priest, Padre Andres, as an ally. No ordinary priest, Andres will have to rely on his skills as a witch to battle the malevolent presence haunting the hacienda. Oh my goodness, this sounds good. And Vampires of El Norte. As a daughter of a rancher in 1840s Mexico, Nina knows a thing or two about monsters. Her home has long been threatened by tensions with Anglo settlers from the north, but something more sinister lurks near the ranch at night, something that drains men of their blood and leaves them for dead. Vampires, perhaps? Something that once attacked Nina 9 years ago. Oh. If you're attacked by a vampire, don't you turn into a vampire? Believing Nina dead, Nestor has been on the run from his grief ever since, moving from ranch to ranch working as a vaquero. But no amount of drink can dispel the night terrors of sharp teeth. No woman can erase his childhood sweetheart from his mind. Aww. When the United States invades Mexico in 1846, the two are brought abruptly together on the road to war. Nina as a curandera, a healer striving to prove her worth to her father so that he does not marry her off to a stranger, and Nestor as a member of the auxiliary cavalry of ranchers and vaqueros. But the shock of their reunion and Nina's rage at Nestor for seemingly abandoning her long ago is quickly overshadowed by the appearance of a nightmare made flesh. And unless Nina and Nestor work together through their past and face the future together, neither will survive to see the dawn. I heard somebody say, I don't remember who it was, but I heard them say that this made them think of Jasper from Twilight, like this was his origin story. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know how accurate that is. All right, friends, those are all the books that I am putting on my radar for the spooky season. I mean, that's not true. There's other books. I did a little bit of a September TBR at the end of my August wrap up. I don't usually do monthly TBRs, but because there are so many readathons going on in September, I wanted to at least talk about the ones that I was planning to participate in and what I wanted to read. So those obviously are also fall books that I have on my radar, but I've already talked about them, so I'm not going to talk about them here. And I'm sure there's going to be some new releases that come out that I will be wanting to read. Let me know what you plan on reading this spooky season, and until next time.